What's up YouTube? Capital G here, checking out the brand new Espa Roba support that just got revealed from the upcoming legendary duelist Duelist of Gloom. I thought Konami did a pretty good job with the kickoff to this support. They gave us a new Jinzo quick play that allows you to pop anything on your opponent's side of the field as long as you control a Jinzo, and I still think Jinzo is not a power creep card. It can still be excellent against a lot of back row centric and or control decks, so I think Jinzo has potential, but the current cards, you can just kind of throw those away because they don't really work. Anyways, let's go ahead and break down what Konami gave to our boy Espa Roba. So our first card is going to be the Menacing Jinzo. It's a level 7 Dark Machine monster, 2400 attack and 1500 defense, so it has the original Jinzo stats. You got a hard once per turn on both effects, but you can use them in the same turn. The first effect says if either player possesses a trap on the field or in their graveyard, you can special summon this card from your hand, but its level becomes 6 for the rest of the turn. Second effect, during either player's main phase, this is a quick effect. You contribute this card, that's a cost. Special summon one Jinzo from your hand or graveyard, then you can look at all spells and traps your opponent controls, destroy traps among them. So this card is decent in my opinion. I don't think that it's great. It has nothing to do with being able to get it on field, because I do believe that you'll be able to drop this guy fairly easily. All it requires is for either player to have a trap on the field or to have a trap in the graveyard, and you might not have your opponent with a trap on field. However, every deck in Yu-Gi-Oh basically can play infinite impermanence, so you can play infinite impermanence, your opponent's probably playing it. It's fairly easy for a player to get a trap in the graveyard. That's not the concern. My concern with this card is that it might just be a big dumb vanilla when it actually hits the field. Don't get me wrong, I know that you contribute it and you can summon a Jinzo, but you already have to have access to the Jinzo. Like, it has to already be in your hand or in the graveyard, which means that this card requires a little bit of setup. If you could have summoned the Jinzo from the deck, that would have been absolutely insane. That would have been something where I raised my eyebrow and I'd be like, whoa, that seems very powerful. And the thing is, yeah, you can pop your opponent's trap cards if they do have some sets, but if your opponent has like 2-3 trap cards, you really believe they're down there, chances are they've got like a Solemn Strike or maybe a Solemn Warning, something that can probably stop this guy's effect or can be used to kind of mitigate the damage that they're going to take. I just feel like Konami either should have, one, gave this guy the ability to summon the Jinzo from the deck, or two, they should have allowed this guy to stop trap or to kind of suppress traps, to lock those down as the original Jinzo does. I expected this to be basically a better version of Jinzo, and I'm not sure that it actually is, because it doesn't actually stop the trap cards. Like, trap cards are so powerful in Yu-Gi-Oh right now that it really feels like you kind of need to be stopping them or just suppressing them in some way. Also, and this just kind of bugs me, why doesn't this card count as Jinzo on the field? I mean, seriously, you just gave us a really strong quick play card in this same set, but it only works with Jinzo. And even though this guy, can summon Jinzo, I just feel like this card should also count as Jinzo on the field. Next up is a normal spell card. This is Law of the Universe. It's a hard once per turn. Your opponent can set one trap directly from their hand or deck, and if they do, special summon one Jinzo from your deck. If they do not, add one Jinzo or monster that specifically lists Jinzo in its text from your deck to your hand. Now see, this card I absolutely love. For one, it allows us to potentially summon a Jinzo directly from our deck, which is what I wanted out of the last card but didn't get. And even if we aren't going to get that Jinzo from our deck, we're still going to get a Rhoda for the Jinzo, or we can Rhoda for all of these new monsters that have Jinzo in their card text. So I feel like either way, it's a pretty solid position. Either you're going to get a Rhoda, which every archetype in Yu-Gi-Oh wants, or your opponent's going to set a trap from their deck, but the trap is going to be largely useless because we now have a Jinzo on field that's locking down the exact trap that they set. Also, I get a little bit of knowledge. I know what the trap card is because you got to reveal it to me. You got to confirm that it is a trap card. So to me, this feels like a no-brainer 3 of in the deck, and this is just a card that should be good at all stages of the game. Next up, we have a new form of Reflect Bounder, and as somebody who played through the DM era as a teenager, this makes me feel old. Man, I pulled an ultra rare Reflect Bounder out of, I'm pretty sure it was Dark Crisis. I thought I was the man at locals. Anyways, this is Psycho Bounder, and it's a level 4 light machine monster, 1700 attack, 1,000 defense. I'm 99% certain that that's all taken from the original Reflect Bounder. You got a hard once per turn on both of the effects, but you can use them in the same turn. First effect says if this card is normal or special summon, you can add one Jinzo or spell/trap that specifically lists Jinzo and its text from your deck to your hand. Second effect, if another monster you control is attacked by an opponent's monster, before damage calculation, you can destroy both the attacking monster and this card. And actually, just a quick fun fact, a lot of people probably don't even know this, but Reflect Bounder was actually limited to 1 when it first came out in Dark Crisis, so Espa Roba actually was playing with multiple limited cards in his deck, the other one of course being Jinzo. Anyways, this card is it's pretty good. It's a no-brainer that you're going to play this card because it is a +1 on summon. Either you're going to search Jinzo or you're going to be able to get to any of your Jinzo spells and traps, and +1s have just historically been really strong in Yu-Gi-Oh! Now the second effect is very reminiscent of the original Reflect Bounder, which basically had Magic Cylinder built into its effect. Your opponent would try to attack it, Reflect Bounder would make them take damage equal to their attack, and then the Reflect Bounder would kind of cancel the attack and blow itself up. This card is very similar to that. It blows itself up if your opponent's trying to attack another one of your opponent's monsters, but the obvious Achilles heel of this effect is there's nothing stopping your opponent from just attacking into the Psycho Bounder itself. It's not going to get any protection if they just run this guy over, and I feel like that's an obvious flaw with the second effect. I kind of feel like this card just should have done that on any attack. The first attack declared, it should have just stopped it and blew itself up plus the opponent's monster. That would have made this card incredibly good, but it also would have had still some downside because your opponent could attack with a little monster and kind of sacrifice both. I still think that this card is good just because if nothing else, it is a floating effect, and you know, it should protect your Jinzo at least from the first attack declared. I think it's a good card. You got to play multiples of it just because it does have that Roda ability built into it. Next up, we have Psycho Giga Cyber, and again, man, Konami making me feel so old. I actually have a Fiend Mega Cyber from Pharaoh's Servant, an ultra rare, in my trade binder. That card has to be 17 or 18 years old. Anyways, this is a level 6 Dark Machine monster, 2200 attack and 1200 defense. Why do I feel like the Fiend Mega Cyber was a fiend and not a machine? Maybe he was one of those fake out cards. Anyways, you got a hard once per turn on the first and second effect of this card. The first effect says if your opponent controls more cards that are spells or traps than you do, you can special summon this card from your hand. Second effect, when this card declares an attack on an opponent's effect monster while you control Jinzo, you contribute this card, that's a cost, place that opponent's monster face up in your opponent's spell and trap zone as a continuous trap card. So it seems to me Konami is clearly setting up for Jinzo to be a blind go second deck, and that's because a lot of these high level monsters that we've been talking about require that your opponent has like traps in their graveyard or more cards in their spell and trap zone than you, and obviously those conditions are a lot easier to meet if you are going second. It also gives you the option of playing like evenly match in the main deck, and maybe you can evenly match your opponent in your first turn and that gives you a trap card in your graveyard to summon your menacing Jinzo. But anyways, back to Giga Cyber. This should be a card that if you're going second is very easy to special summon because most decks are going to have at least one card in their back row, which makes this live. If you do have Jinzo on the field, I like the fact that this can turn itself into non-targeting removal at the cost of itself. If your opponent has a monster on field that you simply cannot run over or something that you cannot destroy by battle, you can basically just tribute this guy and then you turn their monster into a continuous trap card in their back row and you don't have to worry about trying to kill it that turn. I mean, this seems like a good enough card. It's obviously better than the original Fiend Mega Cyber, which required your opponent to have 2 or more monsters than you, and I think Mega Cyber used to count as a normal summon. I don't even think he was a special summon either. And finally, we have a continuous spell card. This is Contact with the Universe, working on the whole Esper ESP thing from the duel with Joey. It's a continuous spell, and your first and second effects are both hard once per turn, but you can use them in the same turn. First effect says you can send to the graveyard one monster that is owned by your opponent, special summon one machine monster from your hand or graveyard. Second effect, during your opponent's draw phase, when they conduct their normal draw while you control Jinzo, you can declare one card type, monster, spell, or trap, look at the cards that they drew, and if it is the declared card type among them, send this card to the graveyard, and if you do that, draw one card. Okay, so this is obviously a play on the whole Espa Roba being psychic thing, but he was actually just cheating with his like 15 brothers and one of them was a baby. You guys know what happened in the Joey duel. The second effect actually seems kind of good because essentially essentially you're either getting free information from your opponent, like even if you do whiff on the effect, you know what your opponent's top card was, so maybe you know how to defend it a little better. If you do happen to get it right, then you get free information and you get to send this card to the graveyard to draw something else. Maybe you get lucky and draw a hand trap, something that can be used during your opponent's turn. But the first effect, I think that's going to be conditional on based on like the other cards in this set, or are we going to have more ways of taking their opponent's monsters? Because so far we don't really have any of those in the Jinzo deck, as far as I know anyways. Now if Konami's going to give us a brain control, mind control, change of heart type card that works exclusively for Jinzo, then this card would make a lot more sense. But as of right now, I don't think I would actually run this, because you're basically only running it for the second effect. Again, I think it makes sense for Konami to give us some type of control card in this deck, but that has obviously yet to be seen. But again, we still do have 4 more cards that are going to be revealed, so there is still some hope out there. Anyways, whatever you guys think of the new Espa Roba support, you leave that in the comment section below. Thank you guys for watching. As always, subscribe if you have not already, and turn on that notification bell for daily videos.